And today we will give functionality to our multiplayer class. So in the last video we managed to create the design of our gameplay or game scenario. Today we will give it life, we will give it functionality. So this is our multiplayer class in which the whole multiplayer game will be played. So first of all I have created an OOP variable which will store the symbol. Then I have created an array of string data type called moves. So for now it is just uh, a collection of empty spaces. So it has 9 strings, 9 empty spaces. So array is a collection of a single data type. So you can think of them like 9 strings closed into a box. So these are 9 strings. For now they are all just a single space, all of them. Then I have P1 and P2 variables. Then I have multiple byte variables. The reason I'm using byte is to save memory since I know these values are gonna be less than 127. So that's why I'm using byte here. You can replace them with int if you want, your choice. So z is our variable on which we will handle turns. So the value of z will determine whose turn it is, whether player 1 or player 2. Then we have count variable to count how many boxes have been filled. Then we have finish variable to determine whether game has finished or not. And then we have score variable to keep account of scores. Then we have some more strings, and then we have more bytes to save the number of wins of each player and draws. And this is all these variables are global variables, so they can be accessed into this whole class, into this whole file, not just a single function but the whole class. So as you know, as soon as this activity starts, this method is executed called onCreate. So this method will be executed. So I am using the getIntent function. So as you can see, in the previous activity, that is the data activity, let's go to the data activity. So remember here we passed the names of the user, the game mode, and also we passed actually it was our symbol activity. So here we passed the names of the players, and we also passed uh, symbol, our symbol, that is cross or circle. So we pass symbol and names of the users. So here as you can see, I am obtaining the symbol whatever it is, whether x or o, and I am storing it into the OOP variable. So OOP variable will have the symbol of the player 1. Then I'm using the intent dot get string extra, and then I'm passing it the variable name to get the name of the player 1, and then I'm getting the name of the player 2. Then I'm using a variable sp1, I am adding name 1, and then I am concatenating it with an equal sign, and then I'm doing the same with name 2. So this is sp1, this is sp1. So I, instead of player 1, I am using the real name of the player 1. So and I'm doing the same here. I'm using the replacing this with the names of the player. And then I'm getting the ID of text view object of the move. So I'm getting the object of this text view, making an object, and then I am creating more text views of S1 and S2. So I am making objects of these two text views, above calling them S1 and S2. Then I am setting the text to SP1, and then I'm setting it to score 1. I'm concatenating this with sp1 and score. So this will be displayed like this. Instead of player 1 and player 2, we will have actual names, and then the value of variable score 1 and score 2 will be displayed, right? Then I am for now I have set the this to oop. You can remove it. It's not compulsory to include this line. Let's just exclude it for now since we don't need it. Let's exclude it. Okay, then I am calling the game begins function. So let's see what the game begins does. So here, so first I'm using a variable called toss to store toss. Then I'm using a very object of text view class called move. So this is the our text view which we are obtaining this one. Then I'm checking if oop equals x. Then I am giving obviously giving player one p1. P1 will have player 1 symbol and P2 will have player 2 symbol. I am giving it X and I'm giving P to O. But if the text is not X, that means it is O. Then I am giving P1 O and P2 X. Then I am generating a random number between 1 and 2. So this is the formula to generate a random number. I am casting it to int. I am multiplying it with 2, subtracting from 1. So let's simplify our formula. Instead of doing all this stuff, we can simply multiply it with 2 and then add 1 into it. So this will generate a random number between 1 and 2. So I'm storing it into toss obviously. Then I'm checking if toss is 1, that is if toss equals to 1, our random number is 1. Then I'm setting move to name 1, that is the name of the user 1, whatever is the name of player 1, and then I'm adding the turn part. So this will be replaced with, for example, if the player 1 is John, this will be replaced with John's turn. Then I'm setting z is equal to 1 to indicate that it's turn of the user 1. But else what if the number is not 1, that is the number is 2. Then I'm setting it to name 2 plus turn, that it is the turn of the player 2. So here let's suppose the player 2 is Jake, so it will be replaced with Jake's turn. Then I'm setting the value of z to 2. So z1 means the turn of player 1, z2 means the turn of player 2. So now this all code will be executed as soon as this activity starts. But after our activity started, all that will be executed. But now now it will have a, here it will be written whose turn it is, and here the game will be played. So suppose it is the turn of player 1. So now player 1 has to click one of these buttons. It has to touch one of these buttons to do his turn. So suppose the player turn touches this button. So then we will have to use the function. So now I have created all these function grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So these are the on-click methods. On-click methods, remember each grid has on-click method. This has grid 1, this has grid 2, this has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all these have a method called grid and they are numbered properly like 1 to 9. So if the player presses this button, then this grid 1 function is executed. So but suppose the player presses this button, then grid 2 function will be executed, this one. So all these functions are executed. First I have this line which I don't want to tell you what it does. For now let's forget it. Just if we have one line of code, that is gameplay. So as you can see, all these functions have one line of code, that is gameplay. So we are calling the gameplay function and we are passing it the parameter. So we are passing it the grade number. As you can see, in the case of grade 1, we are passing it 1. In the case of 2, we are passing it 2. In the case of 3, we are passing it 3, 4, 5, and up to 9. As you can see, we are passing it the grade number. So let's see what this grade gameplay function is. So here is our gameplay function. So first I have created an int variable to store the ID. So it will store the ID. Remember that to create an object we use ID of the item we are working with like this. So yeah, that's what we are gonna do now. So first I am creating an object of the move class, which I don't have to explain. I've already explained it. Then I am using the combination to check whether the parameter value of parameter. So this is the parameter that we will pass. For example, we passed 1 here in the case of grade 1. So now the value of num will be 1. So we are passing the value to this function. So in this case, if the value of num is 1, then I am storing the ID of r.id.button1. So I am getting the ID of button 1. So if the user has passed 1, press this button, I will know it that the user has, I will get ID of this button. If the user has pressed this button, then I will get ID of this button. So I will get the correct button ID depending upon which box user has clicked. So I have this if condition. So determining on upon the value of this num, we will get our correct ID of the button. Then I am creating an object of the button class. I am calling it button1. You can call it any name, but for now I am calling it button1. And then I am giving it the ID of our selected button. So one of these statement will be executed, so its ID will be passed here. So if the user clicks, suppose the user clicks second button, in that case the ID of this button, that is button 2, will be stored into this button object. So now we have access to this button object. Now next I'm using the button1 dot get text dot to string. So as you know that button one will have a text. So as soon as the suppose it is the player one's turn and player one has chosen X. So as soon as player one clicks this button will be highlighted with X, and that X will be stored into this function that is getText. GetText will allow us to get the text from the button, and then I'm using the toString function to convert that text into a string, and I'm storing it into temp. So that now we have our text, whatever it is, whether X or O. Then I'm checking if temp equals ignore case P1. So I'm checking whether the button is already filled. So suppose the user has already filled this button. This button already has a symbol. So if it already has a symbol, then I'm using dot make toast. So toast is used to display a simple text to the user. So it will display this text to the user that this place is already taken, and then return. It will terminate the function right there. So if this condition executed, function will exit. But if it is not executed, that if the user has clicked a new button, the button which is not filled, our program will go on. So if the value of z is equal to 1, then I am storing this into the array. So remember we created an array. I'm using num minus 1 since array index start with 0. So if the user presses first button, then I will store the value of p1, whatever it will be, and it will be at the 0th index. Similarly, if the user presses this third button, I will store the value of p1 into the second index. Then I'm getting I'm creating another object. I'm getting its ID. Then I'm checking if I'm checking if the text is X. So I have what I have done is I have chosen that for my X's they will be black. So all of my X will be black, and all my O's will be blue, which is my default color. So by default, every text on this button is blue, but I have checked If the text is X, then I will change the color of the button text to black. So button dot set text color changes the color to black. Then I will set this text, then whatever will be the text into this index. So whatever the value of will be p1, it will be stored into this button. So if the user has the symbol of X, it will be stored into here. X will come here. Then I'm setting the Z to 2 so that we know that it is the player of turn of second player. Then this value will be. Then this move dot set text. Then I'm setting this text to that it is now the second player's turn. So in this case, the else part is not executed since our Z was 1. Then I've incremented the count by 1. And then I'm checking the combinations to function to see if any combination is formed. But before that, let's check one more thing. Now let's see, suppose it's the turn of player 2. So player 2 has pressed the button 7. So in this case, the grade 7 function will be executed. Let me show you that. So grade 7 function is executed, and so sorry, here it is. So this function will be executed, and the gameplay function will be called with parameter 7. So this time the value is 7. Everything will be executed the same way like it did before, but in this case, instead of executing this part will be executed. So this part is exactly the same. The only difference is p2. In this case, our player is p2, so it will be filled. And similarly, the value of count will be incremented and combinations is called. So let's see what combinations function is. So this is the combination function. I'm getting the win text view. So this is the win text view which will display whether user has won or not. Then I am getting S1 and S2. So this one is the S1 and S2. And then I am getting the move part, that is this part. Then we have to check the combinations. So these are all the winning combinations. So if any of these combinations are true, whether this combination or or this combination or this combination. So if any of these combination is true, that is, suppose if the user X, if this is all X is all player 1 symbol, that is X, then player 1 wins. Similarly, if this is all X is that is player 1 symbol, player 1 wins again. So I'm checking all these combination. In that case, if this is true, I am setting the win dot set text to name 1, that is player 1 won. Then I'm setting move to empty text since we don't need. Then I'm resetting the array. I'm setting all values of the array to this empty text like they were before. Then I'm resetting the count. I'm resetting the z. And then I'm setting the value of finish to 1. So my finish variable is 1 now. That means my game is finished. Then I'm incrementing the score 1 variable, and I also incrementing the p1 wins variable. Then I'm setting s1.text to sp1, that is the name of the user and the equal sign. And then I'm setting the value to score 1. So instead of 0, there will be 1 there since the score 1 is incremented. You don't have to think about this part for now. Then I'm checking the combination for player 2, and I'm doing the exact same thing, but I'm using the variables of player 2 this time. So you can see that. But if the value of count gets to 9, that is all 9 boxes have been filled. In that case, nobody wins the game, it's a draw. So in that case, I'm doing the same thing. I'm setting the finish to 1, but here I'm incrementing the value of draws variable. So now let's look at this finish part. So as you can see, suppose the game is already over, but the user still clicks this button, or the user clicks any button. So in that case, our game is messed up. Suppose these three are filled with X's. So these three are all X's. So player 1 won the game, and this is empty. So if the user clicks this button, this will be filled with a symbol, random symbol, we don't want that, right? So to eliminate the need, I'm using this variable. So if the finish is 1, that is the game is finished, then I'm making a text, I'm displaying the text that please restart to play again, and I'm using the return to terminate this function. So if the game is already over, then player cannot click this button. So player cannot click any button if the game is over. That's why I'm using this if statement to prevent player from clicking the game again. So so now let's look at the reset button. Now all this is done. So now let's look at the reset button. So if the user presses the reset, I will first display that please wait. So reset is basically used to restart the game. So if the user presses reset, so I am creating an object of the handler class. Handler class is used to delay a certain function. So by creating this, I passed it 4000 milliseconds. So before executing this, my program will wait for 4 seconds. Then it will execute whatever is this in the run function. So recreate is in run function. So it will execute recreate. So recreate will restart our activity, but our variables will stay the same. Aside from this, I am resetting the value of finish and count. So it will restart our activity, but it won't destroy our global variable. Then I have the exit button. So exit button, in exit button first I'm writing the data to file. So I'm using the write data function to create. I've created 3 files. I'm using write data function to write all the data to these files. So you need to watch out for that, how we write data to files. We will look at that. I'm resetting these variables. Then I'm using the finish affinity function. It will close all activities. Finish event is used to close all activities, right? Then I'm using the system.exit to close my app. Let's look at this write data function. So write data function is used to write store data into files. So this is optional. If you don't want that, just skip this portion and delete this function. This is used to write data to files. So first I'm passing it the parameter of string name and in data. So first I'm using the directory to get directories of the Android file system. Then I'm creating an object of the file class. I'm passing it directory and the name of the file. Then I'm creating an fout function of the file stream. Then I'm converting this data into an integer, sorry, string. So I'm converting this data into string. Then I'm creating an object of the file output stream. Then I'm making text. Uh, then let me remove deadline. It's not compulsory here. So then I'm writing this data. I'm using the get bytes file to convert this string into an array. So then I'm writing this data to file in the form of string. And next I'm flushing the stream. Then I'm closing the stream. Also, I'm making handling these exceptions. So in any case, if an error occurs, I can display the text to the user. And I am passing true here to show that data will be appended instead of creating a new file. So data will be appended into an existing file. So I've written the data. So whenever exit function is called, data will be written. Also, I want to show you one more thing. Um, if the value of draws or if any of my data variable gets equal to 9, so I write it immediately. Since I am writing the data character by character, so I write it right there. I don't let it become greater than 9, since I have to write it before as a single character. So also I want to show you one last thing. So if the player presses the back key on his mobile, it will go back to the previous activity. So we don't want that. We don't want player to go back once the game has started. So I am using this override function. I am overriding the on back press. So on back pressed, is the function which is executed when the back key is pressed. So whenever the user presses the back key, this function will be executed. So in this function, I created a dialog box. First, I've created use this class to create a simple dialog box. Then I have set the title of the dialog box to restart. Then I have set the message. I'm asking the user to do you want to restart the game. I have set the cancelable value to false, so it can't be cancelled. Then I'm using this to set my buttons. So then I'm using the onClick method that if the user clicks yes button, then I'm setting the finish to 1 and I'm then recreating the activity. So I will recreate the activity. Also, you should set the value of count to 1 or 0 also, since it's a global variable, right? So in that activity case, if the user presses yes on the dialog box, activity will restart. But if the user presses no, so here I am handling the negative response, then this dialog is cancelled, that nothing happens. So activity will go on. Then I'm using alert object, and then I'm using the show function to show dialog to the screen. So I think I have explained everything about this activity. If you have more question, feel free to post any comments. In the next activity, we will code our last class, that is the single player class for now. Thank you for watching.